Angela Freeman stepped through the grand double doors of Meridian Financial's flagship branch. The high ceiling stretched above her, sunlight bouncing off polished marble floors. The place reeked of exclusivity, gold-trimmed counters, private consultation booths, and a quiet hum of efficiency. The kind of bank where wealth meant service, and privilege meant never waiting in line. She moved with quiet confidence, her navy blazer crisp, her heels tapping softly against the pristine floor. She had been here before, many times in fact, but never like this. Angela approached the main counter, sliding her withdrawal slip and ID toward the teller with the ease of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Beth, the young teller at the counter, barely glanced at her before her smile dimmed. Her eyes flicked to the paper in front of her, scanning the amount. $115,000. Beth's fingers twitched. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, long enough for doubt to creep onto her face. Then, instead of processing the request, she turned slightly, angling her body toward the adjacent station. "Mark," she murmured, her voice low but not low enough. "Can you take a look at this?" Angela caught the way Mark's eyes narrowed before he even saw the numbers. His gaze landed on her first, studied her, judged her. Beth pushed the ID toward him. He picked it up, turned it over between his fingers, then looked at Angela again. "You sure you're in the right place?" he asked, his tone casual but carrying something else beneath it. Angela remained composed, hands steady at her sides. "I'm exactly where I need to be," Mark smirked. "It's a lot of cash, and it's my money." Beth shifted uncomfortably, but before she could say anything, the air around them shifted. A presence moved in, a shadow of authority cutting through the space. Jessica Keller, the branch manager, a woman who had spent 15 years perfecting the art of quiet exclusion. She approached with the kind of confidence that only came from knowing the rules always worked in her favor. Her eyes barely acknowledged Angela before dropping to the withdrawal slip. The smirk arrived almost immediately. "We can't just hand out cash to anyone who walks in," Jessica said, voice carrying just enough to be overheard. Beth stiffened. Mark didn't bother hiding his amusement. Angela tilted her head slightly. "Anyone?" Jessica folded her arms, tapping a manicured nail against her elbow. "That's a substantial amount. We have protocols for this sort of thing." Angela nodded toward her own ID, still sitting between them. "You have my identification, my account history, my signature." Jessica exhaled sharply, picking up the ID between two fingers as if it carried weight beyond its plastic. "And yet," she mused, dragging the pause long enough for the message to sink in, "we still need to verify. You understand?" The smirk deepened. Behind the counter, another teller leaned toward her colleague, voice barely a whisper but carrying just enough. "She doesn't even look like she has that kind of money." A quiet ripple of laughter spread, low, restrained, but unmistakable. Angela didn't flinch. Jessica set the ID down, sliding it back across the counter. "People like you don't belong in this branch." Silence settled over the moment, thick and suffocating. For the first time, the other customers in the lobby seemed to take notice. Some shifted uncomfortably, others pretended not to hear. A few watched, eyes filled with thinly veiled curiosity. Angela didn't move, didn't react. She simply let the words hang in the air. Let them expose exactly what this was. Angela stood still, her ID untouched on the counter, Jessica's words lingering like a stain in the air. She had faced this kind of treatment before, subtle, polite on the surface, but poisoned underneath. But here, in a place where she had spent years building her career, the irony was sharper than ever. Her eyes flicked across the lobby, observing. At the entrance, a middle-aged white businessman in an expensive tailored suit strode in, barely making it past the welcome desk before a teller rushed to greet him. "Good morning, Mr. Langford," the teller beamed. "Right this way, sir." The man barely acknowledged them with a nod before being ushered toward a private glass-walled room where plush leather chairs and personal banking representatives awaited him. No waiting, no questioning. Angela's fingers curled at her sides. A few feet away, near the regular teller counters. A black janitor in a faded blue work uniform stood patiently, check in hand. He was older, maybe in his late 50s, with tired eyes and a worn-out posture. The teller assisting him was frowning. "I need another form of ID," she said, barely concealing her suspicion. The man shifted uncomfortably. "I got my work ID, my driver's license right there. And proof of employment?" The janitor blinked. "Ma'am, it's a check from my job. It has the company's name on it. Ain't that proof enough?" The teller sighed, shaking her head. "I need a supervisor's approval. Hold on." Angela watched the scene unfold, her chest tightening. She had seen enough. She turned back to Jessica, who was still standing behind the counter, arms folded like a queen surveying her kingdom. "I'd like to speak with someone above you," Angela said, voice steady. Jessica smirked. "You're speaking to the highest authority in this branch." Angela met her gaze head-on. "Then I'll take this to corporate." Jessica let out a small laugh, amused by the challenge. "Oh, and tell them what? That we follow security procedures?" Angela exhaled slowly. She had seen this tactic before: gaslighting, dressing up discrimination as a policy. "You don't have security concerns," Angela said. "You have bias." Jessica's smirk didn't falter, but something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance, maybe. "If you can't prove how you got this money, we simply can't process this transaction," she said smoothly. Angela leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "My money, my account. You don't get to decide if I deserve it." Jessica cocked her head, the fake concern dripping from her tone like venom. "Maybe you should try one of those check cashing places down the street," she said, voice sickly sweet. "They're more suited for your kind." The words struck like a slap. Not just for Angela, but for the black janitor, still waiting. For every customer of color who had ever stood in this very lobby and felt like they were being told the same thing in different words. Angela let the silence stretch. She didn't flinch, didn't react. Instead, she slowly reached into her bag. Jessica's smirk deepened, as if expecting a desperate plea, some final attempt to prove her worth. Instead, Angela pulled out her phone and dialed. Jason Statham sat in the VIP section, a place reserved for high-profile clients, the ones banks treated like royalty. The polished mahogany table in front of him held a steaming cup of black coffee, untouched. His fingers tapped against the rim of the cup, slow and rhythmic, the only sign of his growing irritation. From where he sat, he had a perfect view of the counter where Angela Freeman stood, her posture straight, her face unreadable. He had seen that expression before, the kind of restraint people wore when they were being disrespected but refused to let it show. His sharp eyes moved between Angela and Jessica Keller, the branch manager who practically dripped with condescension. Jason had encountered people like her before, entitled, smug, the type who believed power came from a job title rather than integrity. But what irritated him the most was the laughter. It wasn't loud, not the kind of laughter that filled a room, but it was there. The quiet chuckles, the knowing glances exchanged between the staff, the smirks that said more than words ever could. "Probably a scammer or money launderer," one of the bankers, Richard, muttered to his colleague. Jason's jaw tightened. Angela heard it too. She didn't react, but Jason saw the subtle shift in her breathing, the tightening of her fingers at her sides. Jessica leaned over the counter, smiling in a way that wasn't friendly. "You should try one of those check-cashing places down the street. They're more suited for your kind." Silence stretched in the lobby, thick with tension. Jason lifted his cup, took a slow sip of his coffee, eyes still locked on the unfolding humiliation. He had seen enough. The cup clicked softly against the saucer as he placed it down. And then he stood up. Angela didn't break eye contact with Jessica as she reached into her purse. Her movements were slow, deliberate, so controlled that it made Jessica's smirk widen. She clearly expected a scene, maybe shouting, maybe begging, anything that would justify the way she was treating her. Instead, Angela pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts. Oh, Jessica folded her arms, her smirk turning into an outright grin. She turned slightly toward her staff, making sure they were all watching. Oh, she's calling her little friends now, Jessica said, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. Maybe they can Venmo her the cash. Laughter rippled through the staff. Angela ignored it. She pressed the call button and lifted the phone to her ear. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm. Calmer than it should have been, considering the situation. But there was something else beneath the surface, a quiet authority that turned the smirks into uncertainty. Diane, Angela said smoothly, I need you at the downtown branch. Now, the smirk on Jessica's face twitched. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed her features. Diane? Jessica's mind raced, trying to place the name. The only Diane she knew of was her breath hitched. Diane Porter, the woman who had the power to decide the fate of every branch manager in the company, including Jessica Keller. Jessica's posture stiffened, her amusement fading. Beth, the young teller who had first assisted Angela, swallowed hard, her eyes darting between Jessica and the woman on the phone. Richard and Mark, who had been smirking just moments ago, exchanged uneasy glances. Even Jason Statham, now standing near the VIP section, tilted his head slightly, interested in what was about to unfold. Angela lowered her phone, not even bothering to say goodbye. The call was already done. Now it was only a matter of waiting. Jason Statham had been patient. He had watched, listened, let the scene unfold to see just how far these people were willing to take it. But now he was done waiting. He pushed his chair back slowly, the wooden legs scraping softly against the marble floor. The movement was subtle, but in the dead silence that followed Angela's phone call, it felt deafening. He straightened his jacket, took a slow breath, and walked toward the counter. Jessica, who was still processing the weight of Angela's phone call, caught the movement in her peripheral vision. Her expression changed instantly. The arrogant smirk returned, but now it was polished into something friendlier. Mr. Statham, Jessica beamed, completely ignoring Angela now. What a surprise. How can we help you? The shift was instant, the fake warmth in her voice, the sudden eagerness to please. It was sickening. Jason didn't return the smile. His face was blank, but his eyes were cold, unreadable. You can start, Jason said, voice smooth but sharp enough to cut through the entire lobby, by giving this lady her damn money. Jessica froze. Her smile flickered. The staff members, who had been whispering just moments ago, stiffened. Beth's fingers twitched over the keyboard, as if unsure whether she should keep pretending to work or look away from the disaster unfolding in front of her. Mark took a step back, glancing nervously at Richard, who suddenly seemed very interested in the papers on his desk. For the first time since this had started, it was Jessica who looked caught off guard. Mr. Statham, she said carefully, her voice softer now. This is just a misunderstanding. We have security procedures. Jason didn't let her finish. He turned, raising his voice slightly, speaking not to her, but to the entire lobby. Y'all see this? Jason said, gesturing toward Angela. This is what they do. This is how they treat black customers. A murmur spread through the bank. People who had been trying to mind their own business suddenly looked up, eyes darting toward Angela, then back to Jason. Someone near the back pulled out their phone, then another. Within seconds, multiple cameras were recording. Jessica's face paled. Her eyes darted around the room, realizing just how many people were watching. Jason stepped closer to the counter, placing both hands on the polished surface. You got no problem handing out cash to every suit that walks through that door, Jason continued, voice steady but filled with quiet rage. But when a black woman who built more wealth than half the people in this damn city comes in to take out her own money, suddenly there's a problem? Jessica opened her mouth, but no words came out. There was nothing to say. The scene had shifted. She was no longer in control. The air inside the bank felt heavy, charged with a tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. The quiet murmurs of the customers, the hushed whispers of staff, and the low hum of camera phones recording. It all came to a halt the moment the glass doors of the bank burst open. A gust of cool air swept through the lobby as Diane Porter stepped in, flanked by two board members and a pair of security officers. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with sharp precision, each step echoing through the stunned silence. She didn't need to announce her presence. The sheer authority radiating from her was enough. Jessica's head snapped toward the entrance. The second her gaze landed on Diane, her face drained of color.